So I thought it'd be nice to close off Masechtas Menachos with another video. We learned the Mishnah on Kuf Tes Amud Aleph, which tells us a very interesting halacha. It talks about Beis Chonyo, Chonyo's temple. The Gemara has different opinions about what exactly happened, but essentially Chonyo, a descendant of Kohen Gadol, of Shimon HaTzadik, ran to Alexandria, Egypt, where he made his own temple and brought korbanos there. The Mishnah assumes like the opinion that his korbanos were not for Avodah Zarah, but certainly korbanos brought anywhere outside of the Beis HaMikdash, of course, is completely illegal if somebody brings an offering outside. That's the prohibition of Shchutei Chutz, which is liable to kares. And the Mishnah tells us, let's say somebody vowed, Harei alai ola, it's upon me to bring an ola, like this animal's an ola, it's upon me to do it. Shakrivenu bebeis Chonyo, and I'll bring it in Beis Chonyo. The Mishnah says that if he ends up bringing it in Beis Chonyo, the Mishnah's language is yatsa, which normally implies that he accomplished something. Here we'll translate it as he's out of any further obligation. He doesn't have to do anything further. But the Mishnah sounds very perplexing. How could it be possible that there's any kind of validity to bringing a sacrifice in Egypt? That's for sure a completely invalid sacrifice. So how do we understand the Mishnah? That's the Gemara's discussion. Let's bring the interpretation of Rava. Rava essentially says that by adding that I'm going to bring this Ola in Beis Chonyo, the person shows us it's not really a neder. He's not really vowing to bring a real carbon. It's just a doron. In other words, it's not a real neder. Oh, so then it's very simple. If he didn't make a real vow here, then of course if he goes in and kills the animal in Egypt, okay, he killed an animal in Egypt, he never made a vow, so we can all go home, there's nothing to discuss, he doesn't have to do anything because he never made a vow. But Rav Hamnuna has a different approach. Rav Hamnuna says no, it's not true. This person definitely created a carbon. There is an ola here. Yet, if it's brought in Beis Chonyo, which is definitely illegal, not a carbon, he doesn't have to do anything more. He doesn't have to replace it, because we say by adding those words, I'm going to bring in a Beis Chonyo, the person is exempting himself from personal liability. He was saying, in case it's brought in Beis Chonyo, which is obviously, just like killing it, it's not really bringing it as an offering. If that happens, I'm not responsible as a person normally. As of course, if somebody says Harei alai, whatever carbon it is, normally he has a personal obligation to have that carbon brought, no matter what. If the animal gets lost, he has to replace it. So Rav Hamnuna explains that the person here added Ashkrivenu bebeis Chonyo to exempt himself from personal liability. Now, that would be pretty simple to understand if we could say that, Rav Hamnuna is telling us that that's what the person meant. He almost as like a code. He said, I don't want to be personally responsible, so for whatever reason he chose to exempt himself with this interesting language of I'm going to bring in a Beis Chonyo. But that really meant he was saying that I'm exempt in case it's not brought. Okay, fine. The problem is that if we look at Rashi, Divrei Masel B'Midbar, which is going on in the equivalent case, there he says, Harei alai ola, to bring it in the middle of the midbar, which obviously, of course, also is not, you can't bring a carbon there. So Raisa says, just like Rav Hamnuna, if it's brought, he brings it outside of the Beis HaMikdash, then yatsa, meaning he doesn't have to do anything further. So the Raisa is the proof to Rav Hamnuna. But Rashi there explains the case. He says, why did this guy say that he's going to bring the carbon in the midbar? Because kasavar, the person thought, shemishkan shahayasham yehadayin a midbar kadosh, that the midbar, the Sinai desert, has the kedusha still, because the Jews once had a mishkan there and brought korbanos there. So this guy really thought he could bring the carbon there. So one second, if he really thought he could bring the carbon, what is Rav Hamnuna saying? We can't say anymore that the person had in mind, I want to exempt myself. That's not true. He said that I'm going to bring it in this invalid place because he thought he could really bring it there. So now how do we understand Rav Hamnuna? So I'd like to suggest that maybe Rav Hamnuna and Rav are not so different after all, that's similar to the way Rava argues that by adding these kind of words, he's going to bring the offering in a completely invalid way. Rava says, therefore, it amounts to he's saying he's not really promising to bring a carbon. Rav Hamnuna doesn't go that far. However, Rav Hamnuna does say that, okay, this guy really thought he could bring the carbon in the midbar. What would he say if we asked him, hey sir, you can't bring it in the midbar? What would he say? Now, Rav Hamnuna is clearly saying that he's still committing to bring the carbon. But perhaps Rav Hamnuna agrees with Rava's logic a little bit that the commitment level is not the same. I wouldn't have committed as a neder harei alai had I known that I can't do it exactly as I say outside of the Beis Hamikdash. So he's not committed to the level of a neder, even though he said harei alai, even though he's making a carbon with harei alai, but because of this misunderstanding, had he known, he could therefore argue, had he known that he has to bring the carbon in Yerushalayim, in the Beis Hamikdash, he wouldn't have committed at the same level. He would have made a nedava here, which gives him the option, at least, that gives him the benefit that in the event it's not brought in the Beis Hamikdash, he's not responsible anymore. But according to Rav Hamnuna, he is liable to kares if he slaughters this outside the Beis Hamikdash. Why again? Because according to Rav Hamnuna, it is a real carbon. So that's shchutei chutz to bring it outside. Hope you've enjoyed. Let me know if you have any thoughts about that. And I'm going to give everyone a mazel tov on the completion of Menachos. We should finish many svarim together in the future.